The large view screen flickered to life in the diplomatic chamber of Earth's Orbital Command. Ambassador George Miller adjusted his tie and took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since they discovered they weren't alone in the universe. Nervous? Lieutenant Susan Wright asked, standing at his side with a tablet displaying their presentation materials. A healthy amount, Miller replied with a small smile. Wouldn't be human if I wasn't. Earth year 2157 marked humanity's 15th year of interplanetary colonization. Outposts on Mars thrived with nearly 30,000 people. The underwater colonies on Erebus studied the alien microbes discovered beneath the ice. Mining operations on Titan supplied rare elements that revolutionized Earth's technology. Humanity had come far in a short time. And now, the Galactic Council had finally noticed. Transmission connecting in 30 seconds, announced the communications officer. The full council is present for this session. Miller nodded. Remember, we're here to make our case for recognition. We stay humble but confident. The screen changed to reveal a semicircular chamber. 12 beings of wildly different shapes, sizes, and colors sat at raised platforms. Some appeared almost human, while others defied easy description. The central figure, a tall blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms, spoke first. I am High Counselor Exori. Earth representatives, you have requested formal recognition as a spacefaring civilization. You may present your case. Miller stepped forward. Honorable Council, I am Ambassador George Miller of Earth. We come seeking friendship and knowledge exchange with the galactic community. For the next 15 minutes, Miller presented humanity's achievements. He showed images of their colonies, explained their scientific advancements, and outlined their peaceful intentions. Several council members nodded appreciatively. Then one member leaned forward, interrupting Miller mid-sentence. His skin was gray with purple markings, his eyes yellow with vertical pupils. He wore elaborate armor adorned with unfamiliar symbols. I've heard enough of this farce, he said, his translator giving his words a harsh edge. I am Council Member Zravak of the Dornian Empire. Do you expect us to be impressed by your primitive accomplishments? Miller paused, caught off guard. We present our achievements not to impress, but to demonstrate our readiness to join the galactic community. Zravak laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You've barely left your home system. Your faster-than-light technology is rudimentary at best. Your weapons and defenses would crumble against even our civilian vessels. Susan Wright tensed beside Miller, but he maintained his composure. The Dornian Empire has overseen the development of 100 species, Zravak continued. In my view, humans should be classified as a protected primitive species. You need guidance, not recognition. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. High Counselor Exori raised a hand. Council Member Zravak, the humans have met the technical requirements for recognition. Barely, Zravak scoffed. Perhaps we should demonstrate why unprepared species need protection. His yellow eyes fixed on Miller. After all, the universe is dangerous for the unprepared. Miller recognized the threat, but kept his expression neutral. We believe we have demonstrated our readiness, but we welcome the Council's wisdom. I formally challenge the human petition, Zravak declared. Let them prove their worth or accept Dornian protection. The chamber grew quiet. Miller and Wright exchanged glances. What exactly does Dornian protection entail? Miller asked carefully. Zravak's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. We would establish oversight of your development. Provide technology appropriate to your level. Manage your resources to prevent waste. It's quite beneficial. And if we decline this protection? Wright asked. The Dornian's eyes narrowed. Then you remain isolated until you either prove your worth or beg for our help. He turned to the other council members. I move to defer Earth's petition pending further evaluation. The vote was quick. 7 members sided with Zravak. As the session ended, Zravak approached the Earth representatives. He lowered his voice so only they could hear. Don't take too long deciding. Our fleet is already positioned near your system. For your protection, of course. He walked away, leaving Miller and Wright standing in stunned silence as the reality of the threat sank in. Ambassador Miller maintained a neutral expression as Dravak walked away. Inside, his heart raced with concern, but years of diplomatic training helped him hide it. "We need to report this immediately," Susan Wright whispered once the Dornian was out of earshot. Miller nodded slightly. "Let's not show any reaction here. Too many eyes watching." The Earth representatives were escorted to a waiting area while the council moved on to other business. The room was elegant but clearly designed for multiple species. Chairs of various shapes and sizes, environmental controls that could adjust to different atmosphere needs, and refreshment dispensers with hundreds of options. "What do we know about these Dornians?" Miller asked, keeping his voice low. Susan checked her tablet. "Not much in our briefing materials. They control 17 systems directly and have protective relationships with at least 30 others." "Protective relationships," Miller repeated. "That sounds suspiciously like what he just threatened us with." Susan nodded. "From what little we have, planets under Dornian protection tend to become resource providers. The Dornians take what they want and give technology scraps in return." Miller's jaw tightened. Colonial exploitation on a galactic scale. A soft chime interrupted their conversation as the door slid open. A tall, willowy alien with pale green skin entered. Miller recognized her as one of the council members who had voted against Zravak's motion. "Ambassador Miller, I am Counselor Nira of the Adrani Confederation," she said in a melodic voice. "I wish to speak with you privately." Miller glanced at Susan, who nodded, and stepped outside. "Ambassador," Nira began once they were alone, "I must apologize for what happened in the council chamber. Zravak's behavior was inappropriate." "Thank you, Counselor. I sense this isn't standard procedure." Nira's large eyes blinked slowly. "It is not. The Dornians have grown bolder in recent years. They see emerging species as resources to be harvested rather than potential allies. And the Council allows this. The Dornian Empire is powerful," she said simply. "Many fear opposing them directly." Miller considered this. What happens now? Zravak has issued a formal challenge. By our laws, you have 3 standard cycles, about 90 Earth days, to respond. And if we reject their protection? Nira hesitated. "I cannot advise you officially, but..." She lowered her voice. "Be careful. The Dornians do not handle rejection well." After Nira left, Susan returned. She found Miller staring out the viewport at the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council. "What did she say?" Susan asked. Before Miller could answer, a communication alert sounded from their equipment. It was a broadcast signal, and Miller's stomach dropped when he saw it was being transmitted across all galactic networks. On screen, Zravak stood proudly in what appeared to be his personal chamber aboard a massive ship. His voice boomed with authority. Today, the Galactic Council encountered yet another primitive species seeking recognition beyond their capabilities. As is the Dornian way, we have offered our protection to these humans. Let the galaxy witness their response and remember the generosity of the Dornian Empire. The broadcast showed clips from the council meeting, edited to make humanity look weak and desperate. It ended with Zravak's offer of protection, but conveniently omitted his threatening tone. "He's painted us into a corner," Miller said grimly. "Reject their offer publicly, and we look ungrateful and foolish. Accept it, and we become their newest resource farm." As they prepared to return to their ship, a Dornian officer approached. He handed Miller a small data crystal. "From Council member Zravak," the officer said, "for your consideration." Later, aboard their vessel, they viewed the crystal's contents. Zravak's image appeared, his yellow eyes gleaming. "Ambassador Miller, this is simply to inform you that 3 Dornian battlecruisers are currently at the edge of your solar system. For your protection, of course. Choose wisely." The message ended, leaving Miller and Susan to face the most dangerous diplomatic crisis in human history. The emergency meeting room in Earth's Global Defense Headquarters buzzed with tense voices. Ambassador Miller and Lieutenant Wright had just finished briefing Earth's top military and scientific leaders about the Dornian threat. 3 battlecruisers. Admiral Frank Peterson slammed his fist on the table. We should deploy our fleet immediately. Our entire fleet wouldn't match one of their battlecruisers, General Kate Martinez replied. At least based on the scan data Susan brought back. President Laura Johnson sat quietly at the head of the table, listening to the arguments. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back tightly, her face showing the strain of leadership in crisis. What about diplomatic channels? Asked Secretary William Hayes. Surely other council members would help us against such obvious bullying. Miller shook his head. Most seemed too afraid of the Dornians to openly oppose them. Councillor Nira was taking a risk just by speaking to me privately. The room fell silent as President Johnson finally raised her hand. We need options, not arguments. What can we actually do? All eyes turned to Dr. Olivia Garcia, who had remained silent throughout the meeting. As head of Earth's Advanced Technologies Division, she rarely attended these sessions. Her presence alone had raised eyebrows. Dr. Garcia, the president nodded. You requested to be here. Why? Garcia stood slowly. She was a small woman with intense eyes that had witnessed countless scientific breakthroughs. Madam President, what I'm about to share is classified beyond everyone's clearance except yours. She looked around the room. Until now. She tapped her tablet, and the room's lights dimmed. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing technical schematics. For the past 15 years, we've been developing technologies we haven't shared with anyone. Not our colonies, not our public, and certainly not the Galactic Council. Murmurs spread through the room as complex designs rotated in the display. What are we looking at? Admiral Peterson asked, leaning forward. Our actual capabilities, Garcia replied simply. The shield technology we presented to the Council was our Mark II. This is our Mark VI, 3 times stronger and requiring half the power. She swiped to another display. The faster-than-light drive we demonstrated is our public model. This is what we've actually achieved. The specifications showed speeds nearly 5 times greater than what humanity had claimed. Ambassador Miller's eyes widened. You've been hiding our true capabilities. But why? President Johnson answered for Garcia. Because humanity has a long history of conquest. When we find less advanced civilizations, we assumed other species might operate the same way. And it seems we were right. Lieutenant Wright added quietly. Garcia continued through several more displays, showing weapons systems, stealth technology, and communication advances far beyond what humanity had revealed. Dr. Garcia has been leading what we call the Guardian Initiative, the president explained. A contingency plan in case first contact went poorly. Admiral Peterson studied the schematics with newfound respect. This changes everything. But even with these advances, taking on the entire Dornian Empire would be suicide. We don't need to fight their whole empire. A new voice spoke up. Captain Alan Foster stood in the doorway, his lean frame still in his black Special Operations uniform. We just need to make them regret threatening us. President Johnson nodded to him. Captain Foster leads our Special Tactical Response Team. Alan, share your thoughts. Foster walked to the table. The Dornians are bullies who rely on fear and intimidation. We don't win by outgunning them. We win by outsmarting them. He brought up an image of Zravak from the council meeting. This council member didn't just threaten Earth on a whim. He's made a public spectacle of it. His reputation is now tied to our submission. What are you suggesting? Miller asked. A two-pronged approach, Foster replied. Publicly, we appear to consider their offer buying time. Privately, we launch Operation Checkmate. I haven't authorized any operation, President Johnson said with raised eyebrows. Foster smiled slightly. Not yet, Madam President, but you will. President Johnson studied him for a long moment before turning to the room. Everyone but Captain Foster, Dr. Garcia, Ambassador Miller, and Lieutenant Wright, please leave us. As the others filed out, she faced the remaining four. All right, Captain. Tell me about Operation Checkmate. Captain Foster's ship, the Shadowhawk, slipped through space with its advanced stealth systems fully engaged. The small vessel wasn't technically supposed to exist. Neither was its four-person crew. Approaching Dornian space, Wendy Clark announced from the pilot's seat. Her fingers danced across the controls with practiced precision. Stealth systems holding. Foster nodded, studying the star map. After 2 weeks of travel, they had reached the outer boundary of Dornian territory. President Johnson had approved Operation Checkmate with clear instructions. Gather intelligence, find leverage, and return without detection. How's our signal masking? Foster asked. Perfect, replied Eric Bennett, the team's communications specialist. As far as they're concerned, we're just background radiation. The fourth team member, Dr. Samantha Lee, looked up from her science station. I'm picking up unusual energy readings from the third planet in this system. Foster moved to her station. Dornian military base. I don't think so, Lee said, adjusting her sensors. The pattern suggests massive data storage. Could be an archive or information center. Foster considered this. Worth a closer look. Wendy set course. The Shadowhawk changed direction, moving deeper into Dornian territory. They passed several patrol ships without detection. Look at the size of those warships, Bennett whispered, almost to himself. Each one could level a city. Stay focused, Foster reminded him. We're not here to be impressed. As they approached the third planet, Lee's sensors revealed more details. It's definitely some kind of data hub. And there's something else. I'm detecting artifacts from at least 20 different civilizations. What kind of artifacts? Foster asked. Cultural items, art, technology. It's like a museum, but something feels wrong about it. The Shadowhawk entered orbit around the planet, which glowed an unnatural purple from artificially modified atmosphere. They used their long-range scanners to avoid detection. I'm intercepting their data streams, Bennett said. Give me a few hours to break their encryption. While Bennett worked, the others continued gathering intelligence. They mapped defense systems, tracked ship movements, and cataloged military capabilities. 12 hours later, Bennett called them together. His face was pale. I've been analyzing their records, he said, his voice tight. The Dornians have been doing this for centuries. They find emerging species, threaten them into accepting protection, then strip their worlds of resources. He showed them files on dozens of civilizations that had been reduced to serving Dornian interests. That's not all, Bennett continued. They deliberately sabotage races that show too much promise. They've engineered plagues, caused natural disasters, even triggered wars between neighboring species. Where did you find this? Foster asked sharply. Zravak's personal archives, Bennett replied. He's not just any council member. He's the head of the Dornian expansion division. Earth is his next target. Dr. Lee studied the files with growing horror. These artifacts they've collected, they're trophies from civilizations they've essentially enslaved. Foster's expression hardened. Can you download more of this data? Bennett nodded. Already started. But there's something specific about Zravak you should see. He pulled up a file showing Dornian political structures. Zravak is facing a challenge to his position. Another Dornian official named Krezet has questioned his methods. He needs a big win to secure his status. And wear it, Foster said grimly. He's planning to make an example of Earth. There's more, Lee interrupted, pointing to her screen. I found schematics of their ships. They have a critical weakness in their communication systems. If overloaded with precisely modulated signals, their entire command network could collapse. Can we exploit that? Foster asked. Lee exchanged glances with Bennett. Theoretically, yes, but we'd need to plant devices throughout their fleet. It would be nearly impossible. Foster smiled slightly. Impossible is what humans do best. A sudden alarm blared through the ship. Wendy's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, we've got company. Dornian patrol ship just changed course. They're heading straight for us." "Did they detect us?" Foster asked, already moving toward the bridge. "I don't think so," Wendy replied. "Seems like a routine patrol pattern. But if they continue, they'll pass within 50 kilometers. Foster's mind raced. Too close for comfort. Prepare for emergency maneuvers. As the team scrambled to their stations, Foster knew their mission had just become much more dangerous and much more important. Back on Earth, Ambassador Miller stood before the United Nations General Assembly. Cameras broadcast his speech to every corner of the planet. "We face a choice," he said gravely. "The Dornian Empire has offered us their protection. We have been asked to respond within 90 days. His words were carefully chosen. Earth needed to appear as though it was seriously considering the Dornian offer. Meanwhile, in a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Olivia Garcia worked tirelessly with her team. Holographic displays showed complex patterns of energy waves. "The quantum entanglement network is stable," reported one of her scientists. "We can link up to 500 devices simultaneously." Garcia nodded, her tired eyes reflecting the blue light of the displays. "And the electromagnetic pulse component. Tests show 98% effectiveness against the communication systems Captain Foster identified." Garcia allowed herself a small smile. "Begin production immediately. We'll need at least 300 units ready within 2 weeks." Across Earth and its colonies, military units conducted drills that were visible to any watching eyes. Defensive positions were reinforced around major cities. To any observer, it appeared that humanity was preparing for a potential conflict they could not win. But deep within heavily shielded facilities, Earth's true preparations took shape. Ships with advanced stealth technology were loaded with the devices Dr. Garcia had developed. Special forces teams trained for missions they were not yet allowed to discuss. 30 days after Zravek's challenge, President Johnson addressed the Galactic Council via secure transmission. "We are carefully evaluating the generous offer from the Dornian Empire," she said diplomatically. "Given the importance of this decision for our people, we request the full 90-day period for consideration." Zravek's reptilian features showed barely contained impatience. "Of course, President Johnson. Take all the time you need. My ships will remain in your vicinity to ensure your deliberations are undisturbed." His implied threat was clear to everyone. After the transmission ended, President Johnson met with her crisis team. "Report on Operation Checkmate." "Captain Foster's team returned safely," Admiral Peterson replied. "The intelligence they gathered has been invaluable. We now have detailed maps of Dornian space, including the location of Zravek's home planet, Dorniax." "Dr. Garcia?" the President asked. "The quantum disruptors are ready," Garcia said. 350 units, each capable of disabling Dornian communications across an entire ship. "And deployment status." Admiral Peterson touched his tablet, bringing up a tactical display. 5 stealth ships have already departed. They're positioning themselves throughout Dornian space, each carrying teams to plant the disruptors. "What about our defensive capabilities?" the President asked. "The shield upgrades are complete on all major cities and colonies," General Martinez reported. "Our fleet has been equipped with the advanced weapons Dr. Garcia provided. We're as ready as we can be." Ambassador Miller, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "All of this assumes the Dornians will attack when we reject their offer. What if they don't?" The room fell silent for a moment. "We have confirmation they will," Admiral Peterson said grimly. "Our intelligence shows Zravek's fleet has been growing. He's pulled ships from 3 other sectors. He's planning something big." As if on cue, a communication officer burst into the room. "Madam President, the Dornian fleet is on the move. They've entered the outer solar system and are advancing toward Earth." The President's face remained calm despite the news. "How many ships?" 27, including 6 battlecruisers. Admiral Peterson looked grim. That's enough firepower to level every major city on Earth. President Johnson stood, her decision made. It seems Dravak is tired of waiting. Begin Phase 2 of Operation Checkmate. Ambassador Miller, request an immediate meeting with Dravak aboard his flagship. Miller's eyes widened. Aboard his ship? That's extremely dangerous. It's exactly what we need, the president replied. Captain Foster, prepare your team. You'll be accompanying the ambassador as his security detail. Foster, who had been standing quietly at the back of the room, stepped forward. We're ready, Madam President. As they left to prepare, Miller whispered to Foster, I hope whatever trap we're setting is worth the risk. Foster's expression remained neutral. The best traps, Ambassador, are the ones they don't see coming until it's too late. The human shuttle approached the massive Dornian flagship. From the outside, it appeared to be a standard diplomatic vessel. Inside, it was anything but standard. Ambassador Miller sat calmly in his formal uniform. Beside him, Captain Foster and 3 other team members wore the dark blue uniforms of diplomatic security. No one would guess they were actually Earth's most elite special forces. Comms check, Foster said quietly. Each team member confirmed their hidden earpieces were working. Remember, Miller said, we need to keep Dravak talking for at least 15 minutes. Major Nicole Daniels adjusted her uniform sleeve, concealing a small device. 15 minutes in the heart of an enemy battlecruiser. No pressure. The shuttle docked with a metallic clunk. Dornian guards met them at the airlock, their scaled skin shimmering under the harsh lights. Each stood nearly 7 feet tall and carried weapons that looked too large for humans to lift. Follow, one guard ordered bluntly. They were led through corridors filled with Dornian crew members who stared at the humans with obvious disdain. The ship was enormous, with ceilings 3 times the height a human vessel would have. They arrived at a grand chamber decorated with what appeared to be trophies from conquered worlds. Miller recognized artifacts similar to those Captain Foster had described from his mission. Dravak sat on an elevated chair, looking down at them with his yellow eyes. Ambassador Miller, how kind of you to visit my humble vessel. Miller bowed slightly. Council Member Dravak, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I assume you've come with your answer, Dravak said, leaning forward expectantly. Will Earth wisely accept our protection, or foolishly reject it? That's why I'm here, Miller replied carefully. But before we formalize our response, I have questions about the terms of your protection. Dravak waved a clawed hand dismissively. The terms are simple. We provide security and guidance. You provide resources and obedience. While Miller kept Dravak engaged in conversation, Foster and his team scanned the room, noting guard positions and security measures. Daniels casually touched various surfaces, leaving behind tiny, nearly invisible devices. What sorts of resources would you require? Miller asked, drawing out each question. Nothing burdensome, Dravak replied with a smile that showed too many teeth. Merely 80% of your mineral production, half your agricultural output, and a modest contribution of workers for our central worlds. That seems rather high, Miller said mildly. Dravak laughed. It is the standard arrangement. You'll find we are quite fair compared to some powers in the galaxy. Foster caught Miller's eye and gave a tiny nod. The devices were placed. 11 minutes had passed. And what technologies would we receive in return? Miller asked, continuing to buy time. Technologies appropriate to your development level, Dravak said condescendingly. Nothing that would allow you to challenge your betters, of course. Miller noticed several other high-ranking Dornians had entered the chamber. They seemed eager to witness Earth's formal submission. I see, Miller said, checking his watch subtly. 14 minutes. Close enough. In that case, I should deliver Earth's official response. Dravak straightened in his chair, clearly anticipating victory. The other Dornians moved closer. The people of Earth have carefully considered your offer, Miller began formally. And we respectfully. He was interrupted by a soft beep from his watch. Right on schedule. Have a counterproposal. Miller finished with a smile. Zravek's expression darkened. There is no room for negotiation. Actually, Miller said calmly, I think you'll want to hear this. He pressed a button on his watch. Across the room, the tiny devices Daniels had planted began to pulse with soft blue light. Simultaneously, throughout Dornian space, hundreds of similar devices activated on ships, bases, and communication centers. Each one released a precisely calibrated quantum signal. On the bridge of Zravek's flagship, alarms began to blare. A confused officer burst into the chamber. Commander, we're losing all communications. The entire fleet is going dark. Zravek stood abruptly. What have you done? He demanded. Simply demonstrated that humans don't respond well to threats, Miller replied. Outside the viewports, space suddenly seemed to shimmer. Where there had been empty void moments before, dozens of Earth vessels appeared, surrounding the Dornian fleet. Their stealth systems powered down, revealing ships of a design the Dornians had never seen before. That's not possible, Zravek whispered, his yellow eyes wide with shock. Your technology isn't this advanced. Foster stepped forward, no longer pretending to be a simple security officer. There's a lot about humans you don't know, Zravek. Lesson 1. We always keep an ace up our sleeve. 3 days later, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with excited whispers. News of what happened in Earth's solar system had spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Council members and representatives from dozens of worlds crowded the normally spacious room. High Counselor Exori called for order, the 4 arms of the blue-skinned alien raised for silence. This emergency session will come to order. We face an unprecedented situation. Ambassador Miller stood calmly at the center of the chamber. He no longer looked like a representative of a primitive species seeking admission. The other council members regarded him with new respect, and in some cases, obvious fear. Ambassador Miller, Exori said, please explain the events that transpired in your system. Of course, High Counselor, Miller replied. When Council member Zravek threatened Earth with his fleet, we responded with a demonstration of our true capabilities. The holographic display in the center of the chamber activated, showing the confrontation between the Earth and Dornian fleets. The footage clearly showed how the human ships appeared from nowhere, surrounding the much larger Dornian vessels. The Dornian fleet was disabled but not destroyed. Miller continued. Not a single life was lost. We simply removed their ability to threaten us. A reptilian council member leaned forward. You claim your technology allowed this. Our reports suggested humans were far less advanced. That was by design, Miller said simply. Throughout our history, we learned a valuable lesson. Revealing all your capabilities often invites conflict rather than preventing it. Murmurs spread through the chamber at this revelation. Where is Council Member Zravek? Another council member asked. The doors to the chamber opened, and Zravek entered, flanked by galactic security officers. His proud posture was gone, replaced by barely contained fury. He is under arrest, Exori explained. Evidence has been presented that he violated numerous galactic laws. Miller activated another holographic display. With the help of Captain Foster's team, we recovered extensive records from Zravek's personal archives. They detail centuries of exploitation, orchestrated disasters, and illegal interference in developing civilizations. The display showed countless files, images, and recordings of Dornian actions against other species. The council members watched in growing horror. Is this true? Exori demanded of Zravek. The Dornian remained silent, his yellow eyes burning with hatred. There's more, Miller continued. The artifacts displayed on his ship and in Dornian museums were stolen from the worlds they conquered. We have cataloged over 10,000 items taken from civilizations that were subsequently reduced to resource providers. Dr. Olivia Garcia stepped forward, having joined the Earth delegation. We've also recovered evidence of deliberate sabotage against promising species. The Dornians engineered plagues, triggered natural disasters, and even sparked wars between neighboring planets. The evidence was overwhelming. As Garcia explained the technical details, Counselor Nira moved to stand beside Miller. "I move that all Dornian protective relationships be immediately suspended pending full investigation," she announced. The vote was unanimous, with only the Dornian seat abstaining. "There is still the matter of Earth's petition," Exori noted once the immediate crisis was addressed. "Ambassador Miller, given what we now know about your actual technological level, I assume you still seek recognition." Miller nodded. "We do, High Counselor, but on different terms than before." "Different terms?" Exori asked, looking puzzled. "Yes," Miller said firmly. "We request full membership on the Council, not merely recognition as a spacefaring species." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Such a request was unprecedented. "That is, highly irregular," Exori said carefully. "So is discovering that a Council member has been exploiting developing worlds for centuries," Miller countered. "We believe the Council needs fresh perspective to ensure such abuses don't happen again." Before Exori could respond, other representatives began speaking up. Not Council members, but observers from worlds that had suffered under Dornian protection. "The humans saved us," said one green-skinned being. "When they disabled the Dornian fleet, their control over our world vanished overnight. Earth ships are already delivering aid to our people," added another representative. Miller watched as the tide of opinion shifted. Not all Council members looked pleased, but many nodded thoughtfully. "We will need time to consider this request," Exori finally said. "In the meantime, what will happen to Zravak and the Dornian Empire?" Miller's expression remained diplomatic, but his eyes were firm. "That, High Counselor, is something we should discuss together, as equals." 6 months later, Ambassador Miller stood on the observation deck of the newly established Earth Embassy on the Galactic Council Station. The view was breathtaking. Stars stretched into infinity, punctuated by the colorful glow of nearby nebulae. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Susan Wright, now promoted to Chief Diplomatic Officer. "It never gets old," Miller agreed. "Hard to believe how much has changed in half a year." The changes had been sweeping and profound. Earth had been granted full Council membership with Miller as its first Council representative. Human ships now traveled openly throughout the galaxy, no longer hiding their true capabilities. The door slid open, and Captain Foster entered. His uniform now bore the insignia of the newly formed Interstellar Cooperation Force. "The relief ships just returned from the Melnarian system," he reported. "Medical supplies delivered, and the water purification systems are up and running." Miller nodded with satisfaction. "And the cultural artifacts?" "Returned to their rightful owners," Foster confirmed. The Melnarians were in tears. Some of those pieces had been gone for generations. Since the fall of the Dornian Empire, Earth had led the effort to restore what had been taken from subjugated worlds. Captain Foster's teams had helped dozens of planets recover from centuries of exploitation. "What about Dorniaks?" Susan asked. "Any change in their position?" Foster's expression hardened slightly. "Still refusing outside contact. Their planetary shield remains active. After Zravak's arrest, the Dornian homeworld had isolated itself from the galaxy. Their empire had collapsed practically overnight. Formerly controlled worlds declared independence, and the mighty Dornian fleet sat disabled in space docks. "The Council meeting starts in 20 minutes, Susan reminded Miller. "They're voting on the sanctions today." Miller nodded. "Let's hope for a balanced approach. Punishment without destroying their civilization entirely." The three of them made their way to the Council chamber. The once intimidating space now felt familiar to Miller. His seat at the grand table still felt new, but the other Council members had gradually accepted Earth's presence. High Counselor Exori opened the session. "Today we vote on the Dornian sanctions. Ambassador Miller, as the wronged party, Earth's voice carries significant weight in this matter." Miller stood. "Thank you, High Counselor. Earth proposes the following. The Dornian Empire must return all stolen artifacts and pay reparations to worlds they exploited. Their military will be limited to defensive capabilities only. However, we oppose cutting them off entirely from the galactic community. He paused, looking around the chamber. Isolation breeds resentment. Instead, we propose establishing cultural and scientific exchange programs with Dorniacs. Let them learn a better way forward. Several council members appeared surprised by this moderate approach. You show unexpected mercy, said one reptilian counselor. Not mercy, Miller corrected. Practicality. Crushing them completely would only create new problems in the future. The vote passed with a strong majority. Earth's proposal would be implemented immediately. Later that day, Dr. Olivia Garcia joined Miller, Foster, and Susan for dinner in the embassy. I just received word, Garcia said, her eyes bright with excitement. The Dornians have lowered their planetary shield. They're requesting to speak with Earth representatives directly. That's unexpected, Foster said, looking suspicious. Why us specifically? Apparently, Garcia replied with a small smile, they want to learn how a supposedly primitive species managed to defeat them so thoroughly. Miller laughed. Should we tell them the truth? That humans have been fighting among ourselves for so long that we became experts at warfare. And deception, Foster added. And innovation, Garcia said. Susan raised her glass. To humanity's greatest strength, expecting the worst but hoping for the best. They all drank to the toast. 2 days later, a small Earth delegation arrived on Dorniacs. Among the group was Dravak, released from custody to assist with negotiations. The once proud Dornian was significantly humbler now. As they walked toward the Dornian Council building, Dravak spoke quietly to Miller. You could have destroyed us completely. Why didn't you? Miller watched young Dornians planting trees in what had once been a military parade ground. Several human teachers worked alongside them, showing proper planting techniques. Because that's not who we want to be. Miller replied simply. Your mistake wasn't underestimating our technology, Dravak. It was underestimating our humanity. Dravak considered this for a long moment. Then perhaps there is hope for my world after all. Miller smiled. There's always hope. That's another human specialty.